The Zizalipiang Titans. The Krix Dominion had ruled the Outer Rim for 3,000 years. Their crystalline ships glided through space like shards of frozen light, bringing order to chaos and civilization to the barbarian stars. But in all their conquests, they had never encountered anything like the Forbidden Sector. Dr. Valen Exor adjusted his sensory tendrils as he studied the ancient star charts. The blue-skinned scientist had dedicated his life to unraveling the mysteries of extinct civilizations, but this one was different. The warnings were too numerous, too desperate, carved into the very fabric of space itself by a dozen dead empires. "Director, we're approaching the boundary," his assistant chirped, her feathers rustling with nervous energy. "The gravitational anomalies are increasing." "Proceed with caution, Kira," Valen replied, his 4 eyes fixed on the view screen. "Whatever killed the humans, it's been dormant for millennia. We're merely here to observe." The Krix research vessel Enlightener crossed into the Forbidden Sector, its shields humming against the strange radiation that permeated this region of space. Ancient debris fields stretched for light years, the remnants of battles so vast they had scared reality itself. Energy spike detected. Kira's voice rose in alarm. "Something's responding to our presence." From the darkness emerged a structure that defied comprehension. It was a sphere of impossible geometries, black metal twisted into shapes that hurt the mind to observe. Red lights pulsed across its surface in patterns that resembled a heartbeat. "By the ancestors," Valen whispered. "It's a sentinel station. The humans built these as warning systems." Before he could order a retreat, the station activated. A beam of crimson energy lanced out, not to destroy, but to scan. The Enlightener shuddered as ancient systems probed its databanks, its crew, its very purpose. Then came the voice. "Trespass DTECTD. Initiating PR Otosio. Judgment Day." The space around them rippled like disturbed water. From hidden pockets in reality, ships began to emerge. They were unlike anything in the Krix database. Vessels of pure black that seemed to absorb light itself, their hulls marked with a single symbol, a closed fist wreathed in flame. "War gods," Kira breathed, her feathers now completely flat against her skin in terror. The humans didn't just die. They transcended. The lead vessel was massive, easily dwarfing the Krix battleships that had terrorized entire star systems. It moved without visible propulsion, as if reality itself bent to accommodate its passage. Where it passed, space seemed to bleed. "This is Director Valen Exor of the Krix Dominion," he transmitted, trying to keep his voice steady. "We come in peace, seeking only knowledge." The response was immediate and terrible. "PEC dues OFF eared. Peace was ori JGCTED. Now Kelmimis the Risi Keoning." A Krix battle fleet, summoned by the Enlightener's distress call, arrived through hyperspace. Admiral Krex, veteran of 100 campaigns, took one look at the human vessels and ordered a full assault. It was a mistake. The human ships didn't dodge or weave. They simply existed differently. Plasma bolts passed through them, as if they were ghosts. Missiles vanished before impact, and when they returned fire, it wasn't with conventional weapons. Reality itself became their weapon. Ships didn't explode. They ceased. Crews didn't die. They were unmade. The very atoms that composed the Krix vessels were convinced they had never existed at all. "What are they?" Admiral Krex demanded, his voice cracking as he watched his fleet disappear. "They're what humanity became," Valen replied, accessing forbidden archives he'd discovered. When they knew extinction was coming, they didn't accept death. They digitized their consciousness, merged with their machines, and became something new. Something that could wait. Something that could judge. The war god vessel turned its attention to the Enlightener. Valen felt its gaze like a physical weight, crushing and ancient. "You so UGT, Nano do G. You shall AHV it. Information flooded their systems. The true history of humanity unfolded before them. A species that had reached the stars only to find them full of predators. Civilizations that smiled while sharpening knives. Alliances built on lies and betrayal. The humans had tried peace. They had extended hands of friendship across the void. And they had been answered with fire and death. So they evolved. Not their bodies, but their very concept of existence. They became the war gods, not to conquer, but to judge. To sleep until the galaxy proved it had changed, or to awaken and cleanse it if it hadn't. The signal, Kira gasped, watching her console. It's spreading. Every human artifact in the galaxy is activating. Across 1,000 worlds, in forgotten ruins and ancient battlefields, dormant systems came online. The sentinels awakened. The war gods rose from their digital slumber. What have we done? Velen whispered. The lead war god vessel broadcast a message that reached every corner of known space. The trial begins. Prove your worth or face extinction. The humans heavy or As the Enlightener was released to bear witness, Velen watched the black ships disperse across the stars. Each one carried the digitized souls of billions, the collective will of a species that had refused to die quietly. The galaxy had forgotten humanity's warning. We tried peace. We perfected war. Pray we never have to use it. Now that prayer had gone unanswered. The war gods walked among the stars once more, and the galaxy would learn why the humans had been feared even in death. In the distance, a planet belonging to the Crix dominion went dark. Not destroyed, but judged. Its inhabitants faced tests of morality, of wisdom, of worthiness. Those who passed would live. Those who failed would join the silence. Send a message to all Crix worlds, Valen ordered, his voice heavy with the weight of what he'd unleashed. Tell them the humans never died. They just stopped being human. As the Enlightener fled the forbidden sector, its crew carried with them the terrible knowledge that they had awakened something beyond their comprehension. The humans hadn't built weapons of war, they had become them. And now, after millennia of sleep, the war gods were hungry for justice. The stars themselves seemed to dim as ancient protocols activated across the galaxy. Humanity's children had returned home, and they found it wanting. The judgment had begun. The GDG Protocol, the Grand Assembly of the Solari Alliance, had not convened in full session for over 500 years. Now representatives from 47 species crowded into the crystalline amphitheater on Nexus Prime. There forms a kaleidoscope of evolution's creativity. Fear united them all. High Chancellor Zorak, a being of pure energy contained within a humanoid shell, called for order. The reports are confirmed. The human war gods have awakened across 37 sectors. 16 civilizations have already gone dark. Murmurs of panic rippled through the assembly. Ambassador Thrix of the Villani Commonwealth stood, her serpentine form coiling anxiously. My people remember the humans. Our archives speak of their kindness, their curiosity. What we face now, these are not the humans we knew. No, came a voice from the shadows. Dr. Valen Exor stepped forward, still bearing the psychic scars of his encounter. These are what the humans became when we betrayed them. The assembly fell silent as Valen projected his findings. Ancient records flickered to life, showing humanity's first contacts, their eager diplomacy, their gifts of technology and culture freely shared. Then came the betrayals. The Corvin Massacre, where human colonists were harvested for their genetic material. The Siege of New Terra, where allies turned predators. The Dark Decade, when humanity stood alone against a galaxy that had decided they were too dangerous to live. They tried to warn us, Valen continued. Even as they died, they built these guardians, not for revenge, but for judgment. They wanted to ensure that if intelligence arose again in this galaxy, it would be worthy of the stars. A new hologram appeared, showing the war god vessels in action. They moved through systems like forces of nature, ignoring physical laws. Where they passed, they left not destruction, but transformation. Worlds weren't burned, they were tested. On HFY, the population faced manifestations of their deepest fears and greatest shames. Those who confronted them with honesty survived. Those who clung to deception vanished like morning mist. The hegemony of Drax, known for their slave trade, found their neural control networks reversed. The enslaved became the masters, offered a choice: revenge or mercy. Their decision would determine their species' fate. "They're not just judging us," whispered Ambassador Yarl of the Photonic Concordance. "They're forcing us to judge ourselves." As if summoned by their discussion, reality twisted in the center of the amphitheater. A figure materialized, human in shape, but composed of living starlight. Its voice resonated in every mind simultaneously. "I am Prometheus Avatar, voice of the War God Collective. You have questions? Ask." Chancellor Zorak gathered his courage. "Why now? Why return after so long?" "We never left. We waited, watched, hoped." The Avatar's form shifted, showing scenes of galactic history. For 10,000 years, we observed. The same patterns repeated. The strong preyed upon the weak. Kindness was seen as weakness. We had hoped you would evolve beyond this. You have not. "What do you want from us?" Thrix demanded. "Want?" The Avatar seemed to consider this. "We want nothing. We are. We are the consequence of your choices, the answer to your actions. We are judgment incarnate. And if we resist," growled General Korg of the Martial Confederation. The Avatar's form blazed brighter. "Resistance is irrelevant. You cannot fight an idea. You cannot kill what has transcended death. We do not seek your destruction. We seek your evolution. Prove worthy and prosper. Fail and fade." "How do we prove worthy?" Valen asked, stepping forward. "By being better than you are. By choosing cooperation over domination. By valuing life over power." The Avatar began to fade. "The trials will continue. Some will be personal. Some will be species-wide. All will be fair. We are not your executioners. We are your mirrors. What you see in us is what you are." With that, Prometheus Avatar vanished, leaving the assembly in stunned silence. Reports continued to pour in. The war gods moved systematically through inhabited space, their methods varying but their purpose constant. Some worlds faced ethical dilemmas made manifest. Others encountered temporal loops where they lived their victims' experiences. A few, deemed beyond redemption, simply stopped, not destroyed, but removed from the timeline as if they had never been. The Krix Dominion, humbled by their encounter, began releasing their conquered worlds. The hegemony of Drax abolished slavery and faced their former victims in truth and reconciliation councils. The Martial Confederation, rather than fighting, turned their strength toward protecting the weak. But not all accepted judgment gracefully. The Entropy Syndicate, masters of dark matter manipulation, attempted to trap a war god vessel in a quantum snare. The ship simply existed in all possible states simultaneously until the trap became meaningless. Then it turned the Syndicate's own technology against them, forcing them to experience the deaths they had caused across centuries. On the paradise world of Elysia, the ruling class faced a terrible choice. The war gods had detected their secret. The idyllic society was built on the hidden suffering of an engineered underclass. The rulers could maintain their paradise by admitting their crimes and sharing power, or lose everything by clinging to their lies. They chose poorly. Elysia didn't burn. It simply became what it truly was, a world of equality where former slaves and masters stood on level ground. The transition was neither gentle nor painless, but it was just. "They're changing us," Yarl observed during a crisis meeting. "Not through force, but through truth." "The humans were right," Valen replied, studying the patterns of judgment across the galaxy. They knew that true evolution couldn't be imposed. It had to be chosen. As weeks turned to months, the galaxy transformed. Ancient enemies sought reconciliation rather than face the mirror of their hatred. Predatory empires became protectors. The corrupt faced their corruption and chose change over oblivion. But the trials were far from over. Deep in uncharted space, the war gods gathered around a structure that defied comprehension, a Dyson sphere built around a black hole, its surface crawling with equations that rewrote reality itself. This was the nexus, the heart of humanity's transcendence. Inside, the collective consciousness of humanity debated. Some argued for mercy, remembering what they once were. Others demanded justice, scared by betrayal and genocide. All agreed on one point: the galaxy would evolve, or it would end. The final phase of judgment was approaching. Soon, the galaxy would face its ultimate test, not as individual species, but as a collective. The war gods would determine if intelligence in this galaxy deserved to continue, or if it was time to reset the experiment. In the Grand Assembly, now humbled and united by shared trial, a message arrived. It was a date, a location, and a simple statement. Prepare for FINALGGMENT. Prove you have ye learned, or EMBRAC oblivion. The coordinates led to the galactic core, where stars were born and died. There, the fate of all intelligent life would be decided. As ships from every civilization began the journey to the core, Valen wondered if they were flying toward salvation or extinction. The humans had become gods of war, not to destroy, but to perfect. They offered not vengeance, but evolution. The question remained: had the galaxy evolved enough to satisfy its harshest judges? The stars held their breath as the final act began. When gods bleed. The galactic core blazed with the light of 1,000,000 suns as fleets from every civilization gathered at the nexus point. Ships of crystal and metal, energy and flesh, dreams and mathematics, all converged on the impossible structure that humanity had built in their digital ascension. At the center of it all stood the judgment engine, a construct that bent space-time into shapes that made reality weep. It was here that humanity's collective consciousness would render its final verdict on the galaxy they had once called home. Dr. Valen Exor stood on the bridge of the assembled fleet's flagship, the Unity Ascendant. Beside him were representatives of every major civilization, former enemies now united in their desire to prove their worth. "Energy readings are off the scale," reported Commander Kitra, her scaled hands dancing over the controls. "The war gods are gathering. All of them." Through the viewports, they watched as the black ships materialized. Thousands of them, each containing the digitized souls of humanity. They formed complex patterns around the judgment engine, their movements suggesting mathematics beyond mortal comprehension. Then silence fell across all channels as a presence made itself known. Not one voice, but billions speaking as one. "Chi Eldorian of the Galaxy, you stand at the precipice. For 10,000 years, we celebti. For 10,000 years, we WATCHD. Now comes the moment of truth." Reality rippled, and suddenly every being present found themselves standing in a vast amphitheater that existed outside normal spacetime. At its center stood 13 figures, the prime avatars of the War God Collective. Each represented a facet of humanity's transcended consciousness: hope, justice, mercy, wisdom, wrath, sacrifice, love, logic, courage, creation, destruction, memory, and truth. Truth stepped forward, its form shifting between male and female, young and old, human and something beyond. "You have been tested. You have been measured. Now you will be judged not by us, but by yourselves." The amphitheater transformed, becoming a living record of galactic history since humanity's fall. Every triumph and failure, every act of kindness and cruelty, played out in vivid detail. The assembled beings were forced to witness their civilization's choices through the eyes of their victims and beneficiaries alike. "We do not judge you by our standards," spoke wisdom, "but by your own potential. The question is not whether you are perfect, but whether you are capable of growth." Justice raised its hand, and 13 pillars of light appeared. Each pillar represents a fundamental truth of existence. Your civilizations will be measured against these truths. Fail, and you cease. Succeed, and you evolve. The first test began. The pillar of empathy blazed to life, and every being experienced the collective suffering their species had caused. The Corvin felt the terror of the humans they had harvested. The Dracs lived through the agony of their slaves. The Cricks endured the despair of the worlds they had conquered. Some broke under the weight of their crimes, but many, so many more than the war gods had expected, embraced the pain and chose to be better. "We accept judgment," declared High Chancellor Zorak, tears of pure energy streaming down his face. "We have failed the test of empathy too often, but we choose to learn. We choose to grow." One by one, civilizations stepped forward to face each pillar. Sacrifice tested their willingness to give up power for the greater good. Logic challenged their ability to see beyond prejudice. Love demanded they recognize the fundamental connection between all conscious beings. As the tests progressed, something unexpected happened. The war gods themselves began to change. The absolute certainty that had driven them for millennia wavered as they witnessed genuine transformation among the younger races. Memory spoke, its voice trembling with something like hope. "They learn. They grow. Perhaps we were wrong to assume they could not change." But Wrath was not convinced. Words are easy. Actions endure. They must prove their evolution is real. The final test activated all 13 pillars simultaneously. Reality fractured, showing infinite possible futures. In some, the galaxy flourished in peace and cooperation. In others, it burned in endless war. The assembled civilizations had to choose not just their own paths, but commit to shepherding the galaxy's destiny together. It was then that Valen made a discovery that changed everything. Hidden within the Judgment Engine's core, he found a message, a fragment of humanity's original consciousness, preserved from before their transcendence. "My name was Sarah Chen," the message began, "and I was among the last natural-born humans. We didn't want to become gods. We wanted to live, to love, to explore. But the galaxy taught us that survival required evolution. So we became what we had to become. But we never forgot what we were." Valen broadcast the message to all assembled. The war gods paused, their terrible purpose wavering as they remembered their origins. "If you have found this," Sarah's voice continued, "then perhaps there is hope. We built the war gods not for vengeance, but for protection. Not for destruction, but for evolution. If the galaxy can hear this message and understand it, then perhaps it's ready for us to return. Not as judges, but as members of the cosmic family we always wanted to join." Love stepped forward, its form solidifying into something almost human. "We have forgotten ourselves in our pursuit of justice. We became the very thing we feared. Absolute power without compassion." The 13 prime avatars began to merge, their combined consciousness struggling with the duality of their existence. They were judges and guardians, destroyers and preservers, gods and mortals. "Choose," they demanded of the assembly. "Shall we remain as gods, or shall we return as humans? Shall we jugi for EVR, or shall we join you in imperfection?" The response was unanimous. Every civilization, every being present, made the same choice. "Return to us, not as gods, but as equals. We need your wisdom, but we also need your humanity." The Judgment Engine pulsed with new purpose. The black ships began to transform, their impossible geometries softening into forms more comprehensible. Within each vessel, the digitized consciousness of humanity began the process of re-embodiment. But it was not a simple reversal. The humans who emerged were changed, still bearing the wisdom of their digital godhood, but tempered by mortality. They were neither purely human nor purely divine, but something new. The first to emerge was a woman with stars in her eyes and circuitry beneath her skin. "I am Eva Prime," she said, speaker for the returned. "We accept your invitation to rejoin galactic civilization, not as rulers or judges, but as partners in building a better future." The galaxy watched in awe as humanity's children returned home. They brought with them technologies and wisdom accumulated over millennia, but also something more precious: the memory of what they had lost and the determination never to lose it again. Where the judgment engine had stood, a new structure rose: the Unity Nexus, a meeting place for all civilizations. The black ships transformed into cities of light, taking up orbits around willing worlds as centers of learning and cooperation. "We tried to perfect justice," Eva Prime told the assembly, "but forgot mercy. We sought to eliminate error, but nearly eliminated growth. Thank you for reminding us who we were and who we could be again." Not all was instantly peaceful. Some civilizations struggled to accept humanity's return. Others feared their power, even diminished. But the trials had changed the galaxy fundamentally. The habit of cooperation, once forced by fear of judgment, became genuine. In the years that followed, humanity's children worked alongside their former judges. They helped rebuild worlds, mediated conflicts, and shared the wisdom bought with their long exile from mortality. They were no longer gods of war, but architects of peace. Valen lived to see the fruits of their labor. A galaxy where differences were celebrated rather than feared, where strength was measured by what one built rather than what one could destroy. The war gods had blowed away their divinity and found something greater: their humanity. On the anniversary of the Judgment, now celebrated as the Day of Return, Eva Prime stood before the United Galactic Council. "We once said, 'The trial begins.' Today we say, 'The healing continues.' We are no longer your judges. We are your family." The stars no longer held their breath in fear. They sang with the voices of countless civilizations, learning, finally, to harmonize. The humans had awakened as gods of war, but they chose to return as children of peace, and in that choice, they saved not just the galaxy, but themselves. The judgment was over. The future had begun.